I think we're live. Hey, everybody, it's JJ Conway and my little assistant over here. We're so happy to see y'all today. We have our wonderful, wonderful class in store for you today. And I'm just so distracted by this cuteness over here. And so, all right, we had a wonderful last day of school event. We went to Chillaxin Inn and did a domino toppling party. Although I think the kids were more into the roller skating and the ice and the air hockey table than they were the dominoes. I think the adults did more dominoes than the kids did, or the teenagers did more dominoes than the kids did. But it was still a good time. It was still a good time. All right, so today we're going to talk about a couple things. It is our fourth Thursday, okay? And so just to give a quick thing while we're waiting for everybody to come in, every Thursday night we have a class. We are looking at moving that, but for now it's every Thursday night we have a free class. If you ask questions in the chat, I will stay till the last question in the chat is answered. If you come on and want to know about a particular topic, if you have a question about the topic that I'm teaching in the moment that I'm teaching it, I will answer that question. Otherwise, any question is up for grabs at the end, okay? So every first Thursday is our fireside chat. That's just Q&A. Our second Thursdays are the seven-figure business building, multiple streams of income you can implement. Then our third Thursdays, which was last week, was real estate. And then today is our fourth Thursday, the empowered entrepreneur. How to become the person who attracts into your life the things that you say you want out of life. I'm excited for our lesson tonight. We're going to be talking about the neuro-brain, and then I'm going to roll into one of the top lessons from our time-tested success series. And the reason I'm dovetailing those together is because they really, because when we get into a neurofog, from whatever reason it is, and my reasons will be different from your reasons, but for whatever reasons it is, when our brains get locked up and we can't move forward the way we want to, then it really hinders us from implementing this one-time tested success strategy above many others that we could just nug our way through. But this one requires our brain to be focused and on point. And so we're going to talk about that today. Now, it is May. We're rounding out Mental Health Month. And let me tell you, before you go away, I want you to know that our next Thursday, that's the 5th Thursday for May, we have a very special broadcast for you. I'm in the process of editing right now my interview with H.G. Tudor, the Ultra himself, about narcissism and psychopathy. And you do not want to miss next Thursday's class. Even if you've got to come in and jump in after the fact, even if you've got to catch it on the Ladies of Wealth podcast, go ahead and pull out your phone and subscribe to Ladies of Wealth now, so you will get it as soon as that episode is released. And it'll be broadcast Thursday night, next Thursday night. This will break free so many people who find themselves ensnared by narcissists. We are going to be talking about why high-earning women find themselves ensnared by narcissists. Why high-earning women, why high-powered women find themselves ensnared by narcissists. It's so powerful. It is such a powerful interview, y'all. And he left me an opening to interview him again. So I think we're gonna have to talk with him again. But you got to hear this interview next week. I mean, you got to hear today too. I want you to hear today too. Okay. All right. Well, we're gonna say goodnight to my little assistant right now, and we're gonna get into our lesson. All right. Thank you for joining us today. You want to say something to everybody?
If I am not asleep by the end of the class, I will come back on screen. So if you get through the whole lesson and I'm not asleep, you get to see me again.
Oh, okay. That's always a
Bye-bye.
treat. That's always a treat. All right. Okay. So, Facebook is deleting our lives now, and so I don't know if you saw the one that I did today. But I did a little teaser of what I want to talk about tonight, and that is the neurofog of our brain and equivalating. Is that even a word? Like making our analogy of the brain to our computers. Okay, and so I'm gonna tell y'all a story real quick. Hold on. I see that he is still getting himself settled over there. Let me just make sure he's good. Okay. Are you good? Okay, go lay down. Go lay down. Okay, I see that you see me. He's letting me know that he is not going to fall asleep. He's going to get his snuggly reward. I guess he is. Okay, so what we talked about a little bit earlier today, we were talking about the neural brain, and I wanted to expand on that today because I call it my neural brain. That's really kind of a misnomer because the whole brain is neurology, right? But for me, what I call neural brain is when my brain is not acting the way it's supposed to act. And I had a really, really bad car accident 8 years ago. Y'all, actually 8 years ago last week. It's been 8 years, y'all. 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Woo, y'all, that first neurologist said I had 5 to 10 years of a good brain left and then I was going to be vegetable. And so you know what? The Lord's showing that he was wrong. All right. Anyway, I'm all excited about that. Okay. So what I was talking about earlier today and what I want to share with you all today, this evening, is I was talking about how sometimes our brains get real tripped up and sometimes we can go into what I call neural brain. It's really brain. Some people call it brain fog. I call it neural brain because it reminds me what the first neurologist was saying, because back then I really was getting kind of hopeless. Y'all, I was really just like, I was there, but I wasn't really present. And I would be driving down the street and my mind would just blank out. Like I wouldn't even know where I was going or what I was doing. Praise the Lord that I did not forget how to drive. I finished my fitness test, got like a 98 out of 100 on my Air Force fitness test, and then my mind blanked out as I was walking in the gym. Like it was just the craziest experience of my life. One of the most scariest experiences of my life, because we always think about life or death, but we don't ever think about our capacity being diminished. And for me, my brain was always the only thing I had going for me. And I know some of you are laughing at that, but some of us have physical strength going for us. Some of us have good looks going for us. Some of us have a credible brains going for us. We have musical talent. We have this, we have that, we have the other. But I didn't have a whole lot of things except for my big old brain. And then I didn't have my big old brain anymore. And not only did I not have my big old brain, I didn't even have a basic brain. I didn't even have an average brain. I had a fair to middling brain on a good day for 5 minutes. And the rest of the day, it was okay. So, for me, the healing that I have, in great part, I thank the Lord for sending me to good neurologist, giving me the mind to pay out of pocket, even though y'all know I'm very frugal, but our healthcare, sometimes you just got to pay it. I thank the Lord for providing me the means to do so, because I don't believe in going to debt for things that we don't need to go into debt for. But I thank the Lord that he opened those opportunities to work with Dr. Amen and Dr. Faber at the Amen Clinic in Atlanta. And they have one in Dallas now, so that's awesome. But back then they didn't have one in Dallas yet. And so for me, I noticed that Neuro-Brain comes on me when I've not gotten enough sleep. So sometimes, like one time, some of y'all were on, I was on a 4-hour marathon class. And I started losing track of my sentences and stuff. And I was like, we're going to get through this class. And I finally just had to start putting it on the slides because my brain, you could physically see the brain shutting down. And I said, okay, we're not going to mess with this, but I'm going to give these people this class because everybody was asking questions. That class was popping, y'all. And I said, okay, we're going to do this. But then even then after a while, I was like, okay, we got to cut this off. This is a party. I like the party, but I like my brain. And my brain was saying, we need some sleep. So if I don't get enough sleep, if I don't get enough hydration, oh, I left my cuppy. Hey, honey, go get me my purple cuppy, please. Thank you. All right, let me see. So if I don't get enough sleep, Neuro-Brain. If I don't get enough hydration, Neuro-Brain. If I don't get enough nutrients. Now notice I didn't say food, okay? Because eating a volume of food is not the same as your body's ability to extract the nutrients from the food, okay? Not having enough nutrients in my body, Neuro-Brain, okay? And then a lot of inflammation. So that's why my normal eating plan, I know I don't look like it, but my normal eating plan minimizes sugar, minimizes beans, minimizes things that cause inflammation in the body, because that inflammation in the body is multiplied greatly in a brain that has had trauma. Okay. And so the other day, maybe about a month ago, I was at my son's school. And we were waiting to sign, I was waiting to sign my son out because he had an appointment. And one of the things that I did, okay, that's enough. I'm trying to teach class. Go lay down.
You guys need to see this.
They don't need to see that.
Mama, mommy, mom, bruh.
Yep. I've been relegated to bruh. And bruh needs to go to bed. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Hydration. All right. So I was in my son's school. I'm in my son's school. I'm getting ready to sign him out so I can take him to another town for chess club. And I'm waiting for my son to come down, and another young lady comes in, drop dead gorgeous young lady with a big old tea. And I think she's bringing this tea to her son. Okay. And my mind got overloaded by this mom bringing in a tea for her son's teacher. Turns out it wasn't even for the son. It was for the teacher. And of all the dumb things to get yourself wrapped around, my brain got wrapped around the fact that first I thought it was for the son. I was like, I ain't never brought my son a tea. And then it was for the teacher. Well, I've never brought my son's teachers a tea. Like, it never even occurred to me that that's a thing moms do. I'll explain more the rabbit trails my brain went down. But before I get into that detail, I want to give you something that you can really take with yourself today. You know, I had to ask myself what was going on, and we'll talk more about the process for asking yourself what's going on. But it made me think about the RAM versus the ROM in a computer. Okay, so in a computer, you have certain groupings of memory. Okay, so you have your RAM memory that's like you have your ROM memory, the read only access. So ROM is read only access. Okay, and this is like all the little things that are stored on your hard drive. So this might be 100 meg, this might be 2 gig, this might be 3 kilobytes, all the little files that are stored. And if you get too many files stored on your hard drive, well, you can't take any more to store on your hard drive. Okay. And so I feel like we don't use enough of our brain as it is. Our brains probably have an infinite capacity to remember. The problem is a lot of us don't have an infinite capacity to recall. Okay. And so we have whatever we have. We can work to improve it. We can work to make it better. But just like the computer, if you don't improve it or make it better, then what you got is what you got. Okay. And now wait, I should qualify. Let me qualify. I am not a doctor. I am not a counselor. I did not stay at a Holiday Inn last night. So I don't pretend to be any of those things, right? I am just a person who suffered a brain injury that ended my military career. And I've learned a lot about the brain and how it works so that I can do what I feel I'm called to do. Okay. So you have in any computer and in your brain, you've got your read-only memory. Okay. Your read-only memory. I should have called that memory. I called it access. I don't want to confuse anybody. Okay, you've got your read-only memory. That's one type of memory that your computer has. The other type of memory that your computer has, another type of memory that your computer has is what's called the random access memory. Random access memory. Okay, and I'm going to liken the random access memory, okay? So I likened this one to like a shelf that you can put all kinds of stuff in, right? You can just store it in there, right? I'm going to look at the RAM like a table. And so I've got a big table and it is full of projects. Has anybody else out there got projects that they've been meaning craft? Oh, y'all. Craft. How many of us have a craft table, a craft closet, a craft room? And we have so many crafts, and we're going to get back to it one day, so we don't want to put it all up. We want to just leave it out because we're going to get back to it, and then we get excited about the next craft. And so we move to the next craft and we put that one down, and we don't want to put that one up because we're going to get to it. We don't want to put the first one up because we are going to get to it. Y'all, when I moved into this house, which is my husband's bachelor home, when I moved into this house, I gave away 30 years of projects that I was going to get to one day. I kept one bin One bin of my favorite fabrics and yarns and tools and things like that, and everything else went to the rescue mission or went to the women's charity or went somewhere that somebody else could use those things. Okay. But I think of the random access memory of our computer and our brain as like the craft table. Okay, so I have project A going, I got project B going, I got project C going, I got this big old box for project D going. All right. And then the next thing you know, if project E comes along, I got nowhere else on the table to put it. Okay, so when we have multiple tabs open on our computer, and y'all, I cleaned out some tabs. I had 270 open tabs on my computer, and I got them down to 90. I got them down to 90 things that I want to get done over the next month. And if I can't get them done, we're taking them off the list, right? If I can't get them done, if I can't pay somebody else to get them done, we're taking them off the list. But I had 270 something tabs on my computer, you know? And so there wasn't any, there was tying up lots of memory. And we think, oh, this is just a little thing. This is just one little kilobyte of a file. It's not that big deal. Well, it is a big deal when you got 200,000 of them. When you got thousands and thousands and thousands of unread emails, I know I'm preaching to myself here. When you have thousands of little niggling things that are at your mind and you can't get rid of them, and you need to get it done, and it's just hanging over your head, that causes your random access memory of your brain to fill up. And just like when you open too many computer programs, your computer slows down and it can't operate the way it needs to. It's the same thing with your brain. I don't know if the functions, if neurologists call it ROM versus RAM. I don't know any of that. I'm just making an analogy that makes sense to me. So our read-only memory would be like the things that we know and we already know and they're already stored. And on our computer, that's the computer programs that we have. And then we open up that computer program and we start typing a new file. And that new file is like our random access memory. So what this means for our brain, okay, is we have this space that stores all of our working data, and that program is if you have a bigger hard drive, you can store more programs in your ROM. And if you have a bigger capacity, then you can do more with your RAM. But if your computer doesn't have enough space to actually work, you might have space in the ROM, but if your craft table RAM is full, then your computer isn't going to be effective. It's going to keep crashing, okay? It's like having that whole craft room, but all your tables are full of projects, and you want to start a new project that you think is only going to take 5 minutes. 5 weeks later, it's still there. 5 years later, it's still there, but that's beside the point. You think it's just going to take 5 minutes, but you don't have any space on the table. RAM is like the craft tables of our brain, okay? So when I find myself struggling during a time when I shouldn't be struggling, I have to ask myself, what's going on here, okay? Now, I've already mentioned, for those of you just joining us, this is May. It's Mental Health Month. That's why I'm bringing a lot of these neurology things in, and neurology experts and stuff like that. That's why we're covering this topic today. And I really want you to hear and look for the application to your life, okay? So there are times when my brain is going to struggle. If I eat too much sugar, don't get enough sleep, don't get enough water, eat too many other inflammatory foods, brain is not going to work well enough, okay? If I find myself in that way, yep, brain's not going to work. If I allow myself to become too overrun with emotion, my brain does not work the way I want it to work, okay? And I told you I learned a lot about this through the Amen Clinic, right? Inflammation, dehydration, tiredness, they all slow down the brain's processes. It's like those things shrink the amount of space on our table, okay? But this particular day, I'm in this office waiting for my son to get his food. Waiting for my son to get there so I can take him to this chest thing. I wasn't too tired. I had plenty of hydration, and I hadn't eaten anything I shouldn't have been eating because I was fasting. All right. And so I know some of you are going to feel like this doesn't apply to you, but I hope that you're going to see why I'm saying all this in a minute. So just bear with me. Okay. I go pick up my son for this appointment. My conversations that day, they were not hitting, y'all. Like everything I was saying was either wrong or offensive, and I couldn't figure out why. And I sat in my car analyzing the situation later. I was like, I realized that what had gobbled up too much of my brain's RAM was when that parent came in and brought a tea for her son's teacher. I know, this sounds like such a lame thing to be derailed by, right? But just hang with me here. Hang with me. Look, because if I may, if you're here on my channel, I think I'm allowed to say what I'm about to say. And if I'm not, please just pray for me, okay? Some of the things that derail you probably sound silly to other people too. And one of the reasons that I can be patient and tolerant with my clients is because I know what it's like to be derailed by something that nobody else thinks is important. So just hang with me here as I give you this example, okay? So this young lady brought in a tea for her son's teacher. At first, I thought it was for her son, and I was like, "Wow, what a cool mom! She's gorgeous and she's fit. I mean, she looked good, y'all. She's bringing her kid tea." And no, y'all heard my other thing about it's not the skinny girl's fault, right? I wasn't jealous of her. I was just happy for her. She's fit. She's gorgeous. She's got a nice demeanor about her, and she's bringing her kid some tea. How cute is that, right? I can't bring my kid tea to school. He got enough behavior problems as it is, right? So if he could get his behavior together, then maybe I could bring him some tea to school. But I was starting to question, like, I ain't never brought either one of my kids tea or any kind of treats to school unless it was their birthday, you know? And then I hear that it's for the teacher. And then, y'all, I get even worse in my brain. I'm like, oh my goodness, I must be a horrible parent because it's never occurred to me in the 15 years. No, it's probably longer than that now because he started school. 15 years. Since my oldest started school, it never occurred to me to bring a random treat or a drink to his teacher. And I was like, and so in my mind, I'm waiting for my son. They're having a chit chat and I'm looking at the tea and I'm like, man, that tea looks good. And then I'm like, I wonder if they are friends. Like, why would she do that? Because I'm still learning this stay-at-home mom journey. I was just like, what? Why would she do that? You know, are they friends? Is this just what moms do? And I was a working mom the first time around. So like, I never got the memo that, hey, stay at home mom, do this, and this, right? Like, are my son's troubles at school in part because I, as a parent, don't do nice things like bring treats for the teachers? Like, I mean, he's going to be mad at me for saying this because I know he's not asleep yet. I tend to believe it's his own lack of friendliness and lack of self-control that gets him into trouble. But could I be helping the situation if I did more things like bring tea to the teacher? You know, like is this one of those, like, I found out because I was such a busy professional. I thought I was friends with people who just texted from time to time, but then I found out after I retired, well, they text each other all day long. I wasn't really a friend. I was just on the periphery. And I didn't know. I know to some of you, this sounds like a really crazy rabbit hole to have gone down, okay? But I'm very sensitive to the impact of my life on my children. I will never forget the way that the other kids teased me in junior high and high school about my mom's lifestyle. I'll never forget being the kid who never had scissors or didn't have paper or didn't have enough glue, and while I forgive my mom for not having the money to buy us everything that was on the school list, because that really wasn't her fault. She did the best that she could. And I forgive her for not realizing how her decisions, when she had that meltdown later in life, how those decisions impacted us. Forgiveness doesn't mean that you forget. In fact, I think it's actually important to remember how we felt in those times that we've had to forgive others for, so we don't perpetrate this on somebody else. See, if I remember what it felt like to be the kid who always had to borrow somebody else's scissors or somebody else's glue, then I would be more motivated to buy my son the scissors and glue that he needs, instead of saying, you know what, he doesn't need all that stuff. I'm going to go buy me a meal out or a new outfit. Okay. And so I think it's important not to hold things over people's head, not to hold on to negative energy, but to not forget where you came from. Okay. And you might have heard me talk about when I realized I had put one of our aspiring ministers between a rock and a hard place, just like one of my former pastors had done to me. Only I hadn't realized the situation. I was simply trying to give her more responsibility because I saw so much more in her than everyone was giving her credit for. But then when I saw how it played out and it reminded me of what I went through as a young aspiring minister, I asked the Lord to help me have open eyes and never put her or anybody else in that situation again. And so I'm thinking this, and then somebody asked a question. I'm thinking about the tea. I'm thinking about my mom in it. And am I doing a good job? Am I doing what I'm supposed to do? Or is this just extra above? Or maybe they're just friends. And then somebody asks a question about how things are different here from other places I've lived. Very different, very different. I laugh, and I'm about to say there's so many good things. But the lady with the tea cuts me off and says, and she kind of looks at me like I'm being rude and like she's trying to fix the situation. And so now my brain is like, wait, am I being rude? I don't want to be rude. So they start talking about something else, and I'm looking for an opportunity to give a compliment because I don't want to be rude. I love our school district here. Okay, for all the faults that living in rural Texas have, the racism issues and some of the other weird things about living in rural Texas, our local school district in Stephenville is really, really good. And I'm not just saying that because they pay my husband pretty well. Okay, they really are a great school district here. And the people that work in that front office, they love our children. So I'm trying to like make it better, right? so so I'm trying to make it better. I'm like, I know what I can do to compliment. I mentioned how one of the things surprised me is the house system, and I really love the house system, but we only do it for third and fourth grade here. And I was trying to explain that I had seen it in one of Philip's previous schools, and as I was starting to say how impressed I am with this campus for implementing the system, the young lady with the tea interrupts and says something else light and airy and cute, and everybody goes up, and I'm like, I feel like I just messed up and I don't know how, but I feel like I just messed up. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to sit back because either I'm taking too long to make my good points, neurofog, or what I think is a good point is not coming out as a good point, neurofog. Either way, I'm doing something wrong and I don't know why. So I just stop. I watch, I listen, I smile, I laugh, and then my son gets there. He's the light of my life and he knows it. So I awed over whatever it was he showed me as we went on our way out the door. We go to the chess club appointment. And while he did his thing, I sat there thinking about the situation, really wanting to figure out what's going on with my brain here. Because now I'm about to be around the table with a bunch of other moms, and I don't want to keep offending people, right? Now, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I don't have a problem with offending people if those people need to be offended. See, if you do me wrong, unless the Lord tells me to, I'm not going to call you out and you be offended. I'm not gonna not call you. Let me say that again. Unless the Lord tells me not to. That's what I meant to say. Unless the Lord tells me not to, I'm gonna call you out, and you're gonna be offended, and you're not gonna keep doing that to me. You know why? Because I'm gonna keep calling you out. And if you're trying to cheat me or extort me, again, unless the Lord tells me not to, I'm gonna call you out, and you're gonna be offended. If you play stump the dummy with me and the Lord allows me to, I'm going to call you out and you're going to be offended. But I don't want to offend people unless it's intentional. I don't want to offend people unknowingly, right? If I'm going to offend you, I want it to be an effect. I want it to have an effect. I want it to be for a purpose. It wants to be intentional. I'm going to offend you when you're my client because I'm going to uncover your money habits that have been holding you back. That's intentional. That's what you pay me for. I don't want to offend you. just walking around throwing out offenses. You get an offense, you get an offense. Like, that's not what I want to do. All right. So now I'm thinking about it. And I realize of all the silly things, y'all, I still can't wrap my head around the fact that this young lady brought her son's teacher a tea. It sounds so silly, doesn't it? And even when I was young, I wasn't young and cute. And when I was a young mom, I was so busy working 12-hour shifts at some bases. And my poor son went to 8 different schools, my oldest, and he would go from school to aftercare. And then after that, a coach would pick him up for practice. And then I would pick him up and go back to my office. And I mean, I did the best I could, especially after the divorce. I did the best I could, but there's just always the insecurity of it never being enough. And somehow, this gorgeous, thoughtful mom doing a kind deed tapped into that insecurity, and the rumination of this is something that stopped my brain in its track. Is this something I should be doing all this time? How did I not know that people do things like that? My husband's an educator. Occasionally he gets gifts, but even during Teacher Appreciation Week, he doesn't get a whole lot, but I do appreciate the gifts he gives. So if you're a parent watching me today, thank you for the gifts that you give my husband, because he usually spends them on me, and I appreciate every one of them. Except the ones that I can't use, that he uses all himself before I find out about them. But I've had teacher friends in the past who really didn't like parent gifts because they were never good. They were usually like lotions that somebody had tried once or twice and you could tell it had been used. So it's just not something I think about, right? But I thought about it so much then. I was still thinking about it hours later, only I wasn't really thinking about it consciously, if that makes sense. My subconscious was continuing to nug on it and to tap into all those insecurities and to feel all that feelings that sometimes we feel in our subconscious. We feel a certain way and we don't even know why we're feeling a certain way. We're just feeling it. Okay. Now, why am I embarrassing you by sharing this with you? You would think I handle these large, big, complex problems and it doesn't faze me. We talk about world health and we talk about what's going on in the economy. I'm like, okay, it's great. But somebody brings a tea in and now I'm a horrible mom. I didn't think I was a horrible mom, but why would I share this with you, right? I'm sure the last thing you're ever going to stress about is somebody doing something nice for a third party, okay? But the reason I'm sharing this with you is because we allow our minds to be tied up with a lot of things that our subconscious is, and what it's doing is it's taking up the RAM of our minds. And then we don't have enough thinking capacity to get the job done that we need to get done. Our subconscious is so busy, doing whatever thinking and processing it needs to do because we brought these feelings up and it either needs to handle them or act on them or filter information to corroborate or invalidate them, whatever all it does. It's like when you're not even touching your computer and it's just running for no reason, right? Because it's doing all that, now we don't have brain capacity to make the hard decisions that we need to make. We don't have the brain capacity to be fully present with our family. We don't have the brain capacity to actually schedule that self-care time that we need, let alone actually do the self-care time that we need. And so I just want to encourage you, when you find yourself in a situation where you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, or you're not able to communicate the way you want to communicate, or things just don't seem to be working out like they should, just take a step back and ask yourself, is there something tying up my brain? What's going on in the background of my brain that is keeping me from being able to fully function? Maybe it's grief. Maybe you've never fully grieved the loss of a loved one or the loss of an important job. Maybe it's self-doubt and insecurity. Maybe it's any number of things, whether they're important things or not. I encourage you to be curious and ask yourself that question. I love to ask myself, isn't that interesting? Isn't it interesting that I should be doing X, but instead I'm sitting here scrolling on my phone, doom scrolling, if you will? Isn't it interesting that I should be doing this, but I can't seem to think straight? I've eaten well, I've gotten enough sleep, I've drank enough water, but I still don't seem to be able to focus. Isn't that interesting? Challenge every aspect of your life that is not helping you achieve your goals. And if you're not able to uncover anything in that moment, perhaps consider authentic journaling or even vocal journaling and see if you can uncover what's really going on. Because then you'll finally be able to deal with it, heal from it, grieve it, whatever processing you need to do to wrap that program up and make space on the shelves of your mind for the things that you really want to do. So let me just take a quick break here. We're going to go into part 2. So now, with that precursor, of a story. Let me share with you one of our time-tested success strategies. Now, if you haven't already enrolled in this class, it's 16 principles that will set you up for life and success. These are what the top performers, the top earners, the people who are working their businesses in 2 hours a day on a beautiful tropical island. These are these success strategies. Those people have learned to take their lives to the next level with less work, less issues, and greater success. All right. So let me just take another sip, and we're going to cack up that lesson. Hi, everybody, again. If you're just joining us, it's JJ Conway. We are talking about our time-tested success strategies for entrepreneurs, business leaders, speakers, and even moms. It's been so much fun just reaching out to new people from all over the world. I have enjoyed these lessons. I have enjoyed getting to see the same old familiar faces as well. I appreciate those of you who are joining me this evening or whatever time it is when you're listening to this lesson. Your time is your most precious resource, and I am honored that I am honored and humbled that you're spending it with me and this tribe. So now, if you're listening to me as part of the Ladies of Wealth podcast, I want to encourage you to join us live Thursday nights. We have our class every Thursday night, and the first, second, third, and fourth are live classes. Our fifth week is a wild card, and next week, y'all, if you're just joining us and you missed the opening announcement, we have a special guest, H.G. Tudor. He and I will be talking about why high-earning women fall prey to narcissists. It's so good, okay? For today's topic, this is one of those powerful concepts that will help you double your effectiveness in life and in your money. It's not that these kinds of classes are crystal balls, like, oh, here's what I know will happen next quarter, because I don't have that prophetic ability, right? But what I do know is that there are specific skills, behaviors, attitudes that you can put into place today that will allow you to succeed no matter what life throws at you. And so if this is something that intrigues you and you haven't already, make sure you navigate to jjclink.com/TTSS so that you can get the rest of the series. It's just fantastic. All right. In the first part of tonight's broadcast, we talked about how traumas, insecurities, frustrations, they can all tie up the random access memory of our brain. I know that's not the real official neurological technical term, right? But it's just the analogy that I'm making of our brains to the computers that we have on our desks. It's like our brain has so many of these programs operating in the background that we can't do what we need to do. We veg out, we stare at the computer, we fall asleep, we hit snooze instead of hitting the gym. Ooh, yeah. And so one of the first things to go when our brains get stuck in these loops is our ability to see the future. So today's principle is that your job as the entrepreneur is to see the future. I mean, it really is. And it's funny because as we go through each of these strategies, it feels like each time I go through a strategy, it's like I'm saying, like, your job as the entrepreneur is to be this, and your job as the entrepreneur is to be that. Well, the empowered entrepreneur, you got a lot of jobs. Your job is to make the best decision and to implement the thing. That's your job. And if you're the entrepreneur, who else is going to do it, right? So now you might have heard me teach on the idea that we think from one of three perspectives. So at any given time, our thinking is from the perspective of the historian, the reporter, or the futurist. And so when we're looking at a challenge, when we're looking at an opportunity, we can put on our thinking cap from historian, where we reference all of our stored data, knowledge, and experience, and we can let that thinking of the past influence, to a great degree, the decisions and action steps that we're going to take right now. Another perspective that we can have is the perspective of the reporter. So when there's an opportunity or a challenge right in front of us, we can play the reporter, and the reporter is looking at the facts as they are right now. This is what we see right now. This is what's going on the ground. I'm JJ Conway, and I'm on the ground reporting on Conway Financial Group, right? These are the conditions and circumstances right now. And all of our thinking and decision making can be driven from the conditions and circumstances. So it's outside in thinking, if you think about it, from the outside in. But we're not supposed to be driven from conditions and circumstances. As the entrepreneur, our role is to be the futurist. And that's why you have to join masterminds and groups and be connected, because your job is to be looking into this new emerging future. Your job is to predict what is evolving and elevate your business, your self-image even. So where you can see you taking your place in it, what's coming next and where are we going and how can I find my role in it and carve out my niche to make my profit. And as you face a challenge or a problem, you look towards the future and say, what do I want to have? What do we need to do? And where do we need to be? You build a mental model of perfection in the future of what it is you want. And then you begin to build into that right now. And that's really where I think the money is for most of us here today, right? Like in every aspect, I put money in quotes, right? It's not just money, but that fuller, richer life. Your life is when you're looking beyond the conditions and circumstances as they are right now, and you're looking at where you're called to go according to your purpose, your values, your goals. It's not enough for us to be the futurist when it comes to delivering our products and services. We need to be the futurist in every area of our business and our lives. You got to be the futurist when it comes to looking at your supply chain, the futurist when it comes to your logistics. You need to be the futurist when it comes to looking at expanding government regulations or contracting government regulations. I mean, think about it, right? You think there's going to be some new government regulations coming up, right? So what do you see as the future in that, in your particular business? Are you ready for it? Are you putting things in motion right now? We have to be the futurist. We have to be the futurist when it comes to finding and retaining talent. We need to be the futurist when it comes to trends in our market, or even more important, the trends that your client's marketplace has. Now, one of the best things about being a financial planner and financial coach is that it gives me an opportunity to learn so much about all these other kinds of industries and businesses. My clients come from all walks of life. My clients come from all walks of life, from retirees on fixed income to TV celebrities. And over time, what's helped me to learn about their business cycles and their processes, because every business has a cycle, right? Not just the overall stock market or economy, but every business. Flooring, hairdressing, car sales, everything has a cycle. And so I've been able over the years to learn their unique needs, what were their challenges, what were their problems, and that's why I mentor and coach people. I have a pretty good understanding of the fundamentals of most businesses, and I have to know that because that impacts my business, right? So coaching, for those of you who don't know the difference between coaching and mentoring, let me just throw that in there for a second. Coaching is really drawing out of the individual the answers that are already within them. Okay. And so I don't need to know their business to be a good coach. I need to be good at listening, and I need to be good at getting them to feel comfortable enough to tell me the answers that are deep inside that they haven't even acknowledged yet. That's what makes an amazing coach. Okay. I don't have to know how to, I don't know how to lay, I have to know how to lay flooring. I don't need to know the business cycle for hairstylists. I don't need to know any of that to be a good coach. But mentoring is where you're shortening the learning curve for somebody else. And in order to mentor someone, you really do need to understand the learning curve so you can help shorten it for the person that you're working with. Okay. To develop the most solid financial plan for them, I need to understand a little bit about their business. I need to understand enough of the ups and downs and the major players and sometimes the trends. Okay. So many of you who've been with me for years, you've noticed that my real estate classes are focusing more and more on getting you into a cash position and preparing you to take advantage of what economists are projecting in the real estate landscape. You know, Paul Martinelli, who helped me actually originally write a lot of these courses that I teach you all. He tells a story of back in 2000, year 2000, when he owned it. Wow, it's 2025, and I still feel like we just hit. I feel like we just had. I feel like we just had the 1999. What was that? What was that called? That big scare. We were all worried that when it turned 2000, we were going to ruin all of our computer chips. I forget what that was called. Y2K. Anyway, Paul Martinelli tells a story of back in 2000 when he owned a cleaning company and there was an earthquake in Taiwan. And one of his clients made coatings for the space shuttle. They made coatings that would go over microchips, and Taiwan is where all these guys were getting the chips at the time. So if you think strategically, there's an earthquake in Taiwan, and that's going to be a major disruption to their supply chain. And so he called them and renegotiated a reduced service package even before it had registered to them, rather than waiting a week or two when they started to feel the pain of not having supply and then fire him. Okay, so this goes back to one of the other strategies we've talked about negotiating your best deal now. It's important for us to think as the futurist in our business, and we can also understand that it's important to be the futurist in our health. It's important to be the futurist in our relationships. It's important to be the futurist in all of these things. I've told the story. I've told the story a couple times. I don't know if I've told it publicly, but I know I've told it a couple times around here. One day my son came home and he said, "Mom, you're the same age as everybody else's grandma." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, I had you a little later in life. You're an unexpected blessing. So I'm so happy to have you." And he was like, "Well, they're all dying, and I don't want you to die." And I'm like, "Oh no, I'll be here a long time for you. I'm going to be here at least until you're 50 without missing a beat, because this kid is just that smart." He said, "Well, if you're here till I'm 50, that means you'll be 90. He said, "I don't think you're going to make it that far." And I said, "Well, honey, that's why I work out almost every day and I try my best to eat clean, because I want to be here for you well into my 90s. And so I can be the futurist and say, okay, what I've been doing with my body hasn't been working the way I want it to work. And if I want to have a future goal, I have to work towards that future goal. I can't just give up today because maybe I can't find what I want in the store, or maybe I can't eat how I want, or maybe I'm tired of cooking 2 meals for the family. I have a future goal. So we can be a futurist in that. We can be a futurist in our relationships. If we don't nurture our relationships, they fall apart. Okay. And so we want to be the futurist in many areas. We are specifically talking today about things that are income increasing strategies. So we are talking about your business, but please understand that these principles apply in almost every area of your life. So it's not just, it's also not just understanding the physical changes that the future brings. We also have to be futurists of the new attitudes that the future is bringing. Okay, so if you look at the 70s, 80s, and 90s, if you would have told me that there would be a revolt in the United States and our attitude around oil and energy independence, I would have told you that you were crazy. Okay. Now, I was a little young for this, but I remember my parents talking about it. How many of us remember the 1970s when Jimmy Carter was president, right? How many of us remember? Now, this is something and I don't know if anybody, I think they thought I was so young I didn't understand this, but how many of you remember changing license plates on your car because you had to get gas because the gas was rationed, right? Even when I was younger, I remember on base, my parents had gas ration cards, right? You had the ration cards, and so that 2-hour drive to France better be worth it, because that was like your gas for 2 weeks, And then all of a sudden they came out with fracking, right? Let me make sure you didn't hear what I didn't say. FRACKING. And now all of a sudden the United States becomes the biggest oil country in the world, right? And so that was a big physical change. But then came the cultural attitude change against oil and the danger that this new way of producing oil brings to the environment, or has the potential to bring to the environment. Now, and for the purposes of this discussion, it does not matter whether you agree with it or disagree with it. Okay, that's not what matters. What matters is you better be aware to the sensitivity of the attitude that the structural change brings, or you're going to be tone deaf. And even in my life, even as a person of color, there have been times in my life where I have been tone deaf and didn't even realize it. Okay. I remember it was maybe so I was stationed at Fort Belvoir. So that was at least 10 years ago. And I had an incident where someone was racist towards me. And I made a comment online about the racism. And then I said, this is something that I said. I said, it probably she's probably, she's Oriental. She's probably from some small village where they don't look people in the eye, and she got married a GI and got brought over here. I had no idea 10 years ago that people are Asian and things are Oriental. I had no idea, because everywhere you were, people talked about Asian people calling them Oriental. And it's funny because after that happened, I began to see it everywhere. And I was like, oh, I'm very thankful for the person who brought it up, who brought it up in public. Now, they might have brought it up privately, but I don't think they liked me very much. But I'm still appreciative of the fact that they brought it up, because I don't want to be tone deaf. And sometimes we're brought up with things and we don't realize the things that have changed. We don't realize the attitudes that have changed. And please don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying we pander to things that we disagree with, but if it's offensive to call somebody something and I have a better word, I'm going to choose the better word, and that's super important to most of the young talent that I come in contact with these days. One of the things that encourages young people, one of the things that they care about is how the people they do business with impact the environment. And if you're not aware of that and you're trying to hire young talent without understanding that sensitivity, well, then you're at a disadvantage. You got to understand what's going on in the world. You simply have to understand and be curious about what the future holds. Again, this has nothing to do with whether you agree with it or not. It's about making sure you're aware of the attitudes that the future is going to usher in. And then you have to be dialed in to this new kind of frequency of thinking, or you get left behind. Okay. Think about the changes that have occurred right under our nose as we've gotten into the world. Okay. Amazon has taken over retail. No doubt about it. They don't own a store. They don't even make a product. Uber has taken over transportation. Uber and Lyft and the rideshare bikes. They don't own a vehicle. Apple and Spotify have taken over the music industry, and they don't represent one artist or even produce music. Okay. So if you look at Airbnb, they still have more people sleeping in Airbnb every night than all these other hotel chains in the world combined. They don't even own any of the rooms. Netflix has taken over TVs and movies, and they don't own a traditional network. And now they've done movies to their platform, but they've never released a movie to the silver screen, right? Google's taken over data. LinkedIn's taken over job search and hiring. Expedia, TripAdvisor took over the travel agency. The list goes on and on. And if you're my age or older, you can think back, the internet just came out like 29, 30 years ago. We grew up without internet. We grew up without smartphones. We grew up running around and climbing trees and doing stuff. Just think of how the world has changed so much in just our lifetimes. I want you to think about something. Think about some of the companies we're familiar with. Now, if you're my son's age or younger, what I'm about to say probably doesn't apply to you. Okay, so just hang with me, all right? Just hang with me. We'll get there, all right? But if you're my age or older, probably familiar with the closing of places like Sears, JCPenney, Kmart, Best Buy, Macy's, right? But did you know that right before COVID, 390 Family Dollar stores were scheduled to be closed? 650 Dress Barn stores were scheduled to be closed before COVID. 2,100 Payless stores were closing before COVID. The Gap was shutting down 230 stores. Walgreens was shutting down 200 stores. Pier 1 was going to close 145 stores. Walmart was going to, it's not much, but it's Walmart, 17 stores. All of that planned before COVID-19. So let me ask you something. Do you really think that much changed? Think about that. That's hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people's jobs that were about to be gone. and of all the places that service those people and those companies would also be gone. Do you really think that much change happens and your world is going to stay the same? I mean, do you really think that this level of change is going to happen and your company or your business or your industry isn't going to feel that at some level? That with all of the structural changes, you really think you're not going to have to change anything about how you do business? Even while we were recovering for COVID or not, did we really think we weren't going to have to make changes? What happened to the businesses who thought, oh, this will blow over quickly and didn't make changes? I want you to think about this. We're going to dig into an example that's kind of personal to me because my dad was a truck driver, an over-the-road truck driver. This is just the tip of the iceberg. 3.5 million truck drivers in America, okay? And truck driving is the most popular job in more than half of the United States. 29 states in all, truck driving is the most popular. Now, my dad, who passed away about 5.5 years ago, he was a truck driver. And so I really paid attention when I heard stats like this, okay? Today, the technology to completely replace 90% of those jobs already exists. The technology to get rid of 90% of those already exists. Self-driving trucks are already making successful deliveries. They've been doing it in Nevada and Colorado since 2015. Okay, that was 10 years ago. A mining company in Australia, Rio Tinto, has 73 autonomous trucks hauling iron ore 24 hours a day, and they've been doing it for years. The U.S. Postal Service started testing self-driving trucks on a 1,000-mile run between Phoenix and Dallas a couple years ago. Wired magazine a couple years ago, 2001, I think it was, 2002, had a cover story called Self-Driving Trucks Ready to Do Business in Texas. But they first reported on those trucks being tested in 2017. Now look, rolling out these changes may take some time, but self-driving trucks are going to be here long before self-driving cars are, and the economic incentive for self-driving trucks is already here. Think of the cost savings and the insurance savings. Do you really think that this level of structural change in just that one industry isn't going to impact our families? Do you really think that at that level, that kind of change isn't going to change our business or our industry? I mean, for some people, it's going to be a windfall for sure. But for other people, it's going to be a disaster. It's going to be a nightmare. So in the way you're thinking right now and the way you inform yourself right now and the adjustments you make towards this emerging future, all of that is going to have a huge impact on the difference between this being a windfall for your company or this being a disaster for your company, for your business, for your industry. Let me take a quick water. Many Walmarts have been installing these kiosks, right? You place your order online, you go to the kiosk, scan your phone, out comes your order, right? Or it unlocks a locker with your order and you grab it and you go. And if everything goes well, you don't even have to talk to an employee. They don't even have to talk to you. And so the one that I've interacted with before I moved away from Louisiana, the one in North Bossier, was troublesome from day one, y'all. So I saw a lot of the manager who would come over to fix it. And one day I mentioned him. You do realize the shifted employment will come when these things get up and running with high reliability, right? How are you preparing your team so they don't lose their jobs? And I'm just, I'm a financial person. I'm always trying to uplift people. When I see somebody that looks like my son, I want them to succeed. So I brought this up, and this guy was like, he thought nothing was going to change because the machine was always breaking. And he even got upset with me for suggesting that now was the time to be strategically thinking about it. And I reminded him, McDonald's and other fast food places, you place your order at the kiosk now, not at the counter. You pay at the kiosk. So these are entry-level jobs that are disappearing. And I know some of you listening may not care because it's been a while since you worked an entry-level job. But one of the things I do is I empower and uplift my community. And one of the ways I do that is by helping people find employment so they can take charge of their money and win. And so I have that same conversation with every manager after that who helped me with that devilish machine, because I kept ordering online rather than, toting a crying strong-willed toddler through the store, right? And so I would order online and I would think this is the day that thing's going to work. And then it would be here forever with the managers, right? Out of all the managers that I spoke to at that location over the course of maybe about 6 to 8 months, only one only one leaned over to me and whispered, "Oh, I got a plan. This ain't my job forever. They trying to fix it so none of us can work, but they got a free Google class I'm about to take." Now, I know the lady who brought that Google class to Shreveport. I'm so thankful she did, you know. But can you see what's going to happen in the future? And when you see what's going to happen in the future, can you find stuff in your market? Can you find the free class? Can you find the certification? Can you find whatever it is that you're going to need to take things to the next level? Right? See, people need to look at what's coming and prepare themselves. The Bible says that the wise see trouble brewing. The Bible says the wise see trouble brewing and they take action, but the simple just keep on going and get punished. Okay. Now some of you might say, well, hold it now. I'm a speaker. I'm a coach. How does that impact me? It impacts your business. Trust me. You can't have that much structural change and it not impact your business. Okay. You cannot afford to not prepare yourself for what's coming down the pike by developing your ability to see what's coming and adjust your goals, plans, and self-image so that you stay on top of it rather than reacting after the fact. Okay. This is why I started off talking about little things that cause our brains to get so preoccupied with life that we can barely function. We can barely focus on what we need to focus on. Instead, we need to have a resilient brain capacity. We need to deal with those traumas, those insecurities, and those frustrations so that we can then move forward and our subconscious instead can be nugging on, I see these kiosks going up everywhere. What impact could this have to my business? It could either create a new opportunity for my business or it could create a possibility of me not having employment soon. What am I going to do about this? And that your subconscious could be nugging on all of that stuff instead of nugging on those frustrations and insecurities. Every business now is a global business. Let's go back. Let's rewind the clock back to 2019. If someone would have asked you, hey, would what happens in Wuhan, China, would that ever impact your business? You'd be like, Wuhan, what? Where's that? Like, you wouldn't even know it. Like, what if I asked you if something's going on over there that it would impact you? You'd be like, no, that doesn't bother me. That's all on them. But how long did it take something from Wuhan, China to go around the world and shut the entire world down? And so if you think about it, that's just how fast the virus travels, but that's also how fast the programming in our mind travels too. That's how ideas travel. That's how scarcity travels. That's how fear travels. That's how breakdown travels. All of it just travels that way. Opportunity travels. Y'all, it travels that fast. And so you better believe that what could happen in some random place in China could affect you in Kalamazoo, Michigan, right? And so you may not be fully aware of everything that's going on, but if you'll begin to look, if you'll invest a little bit of time and really understand that your job as the entrepreneur is to be the futurist, is to think of what could the future hold and how's it going to be? It's up to you. You don't want to be on the cutting edge of technology. You want to be on the bleeding edge of technology, right? The bleeding edge of technology. You want to be ahead of the game. You don't want to be the one stepping behind trying to figure it out. You want to be right on the front lines, implementing and trying right now. You want to be forward thinking. Okay? I think about the year that my dad passed away. And we were in the middle of a class, and he died right before Thanksgiving, and we buried him right before Christmas. So I pushed the class back to January, instead of doing it when I normally would have. And that led into our self-image class. And I think about just how unbelievable it was for me, how much everything changed, because the class originally was scheduled pre-COVID, and the class afterward was in COVID. And those of you who have completed either one or both of the courses, so like you were either the course that you'd either been in the course the year before, or the course that I was teaching when my father died, and the course that normally would have followed it, and you would see the difference. And if you were able, if you took the courses, you were able to adapt your business. You had a so sorry, we're taking I don't want to say it the wrong way, but take advantage of the COVID situation to build up your family, start a business, take online classes, launch businesses, write books. We didn't know what was coming, right? We didn't know what was coming. How many of y'all, I don't know how many of y'all who are on were with me back then, but my early Facebook videos, they had good messages, but they really weren't good videos at all. And I had to work, so I didn't get to binge on Netflix like a lot of people did. I was on the COVID Tiger team. I still took advantage of everything shutting down, though, to build memories with my family, spend more time with my boys, draw closer to my husband. And I launched that COVID financial survival series. We did another run of the self-image class, the leading through adversity class, the turning adversity into an advantage. Like, I wasn't even planning on any of those classes last year, but they were what the marketplace needed. The marketplace needed the Meant for More mastermind. And if you went through that with me, you reaped the harvest. You had the benefit of all the groundwork that you laid back then 5 years ago, and it's blooming into fruit and a plentiful harvest today. And I wasn't even that good. I wasn't even any good, but just like in the last lesson on Good, Better, Best, I got out there. My mentors provided us with content. I was first to the market. I captured a huge part of the market share compared to what I had previously. And I didn't even sell anything for 6 months. Y'all remember that? I didn't even sell anything for 6 months. I didn't sell anything during the height of COVID. And when we came out of COVID, that was my highest grossing business month since my divorce. And you can't put that genie back in the bottle. You can't go back from it. There's people all over the world who have realized that Zoom and Facebook Live is a great way to communicate. And the people who didn't want to do it before, well, if they didn't get with the program, they're falling behind, And so all of our kids were on Zoom. Everybody was on Zoom. And you would think today, well, we're all used to it now, right? Well, many of us are used to it, but people still dug their heels in. And now with all the AI and everything coming out, we've got to be the futurists. We've got to look at what's coming for the future as best as we can. It's going to be relevant. It doesn't mean you have to become an expert in every brand new technology or super cool thing that comes out, but you have to be the future of your business. Your team, your product, your service, your clients depend on it. We need to be aware of what's coming. We need to be awake to what's coming. And then we need to build into the future from it. And that's where I'm focused on in this. So the future is what's coming, but the future is what we're creating from what's coming. And as we become aware of what's coming, when we think about these trends, what do we do with it? It's important to think about what we're going to create. Because if we've got a team of people, and even if you've got a small team of people, even if you're a solopreneur, everyone in the chain of your company needs to know where they're going. They need that clarity. Otherwise, and this has become a consistent theme in my teaching, if your actions are all going in different directions, that's unproductive. And if you've got a team, and again, even if it's just you, if they don't know where they're going, if you don't know where you're going, that's incredibly unproductive and expensive and demotivating. So having a kind of common goal carved out of the future for where we think we're going and uniting that team behind it is the key to being productive as we go forward. One of the things that I've seen is so many people who are in my industry as financial speakers and trainers and coaches are tuning in to me to learn what they need to do in their businesses, and then they're basically copying what I'm doing. I always find it funny when the gurus that I'm trying to be are now using some of my catchphrases and doing what I'm doing, and it's so fulfilling. I don't know if y'all remember, like, especially during COVID, we did little things like when my son planted potatoes and carrots. Anybody remember those, right? They were a hit. And the next thing you know, this financial guru or that business guru is posting gardening videos. They're doing carrots and potatoes too, Like, I've never considered myself a trendsetter, like I dress how I dress, and I'm not really big on brand names. I like things that are practical. And maybe you're not considering yourself a trendsetter either, but when you get out there first, you actually help shape the future. And now more people see Ladies of Wealth podcast as relevant. And that can only be good for our respective businesses, because we certainly do use these podcasts, the platforms, and all the things as platforms to help people build their businesses. The conference is a platform to help people build their businesses. And that's what I want. And that's why from the beginning, it's always been, our motto has always been building wealth together. But you've got to be heard to be relevant. You got to be heard. And that's why I'm asking you every single day, go through the lessons or the questions in the course at jjclink.com/TTSS. Go through the exercises, do the meditations, make time for yourself to really implement these time-tested success strategies, and take advantage of the platform. Be a guest on the show. Talk about your book. Talk about your service. Talk about how you've monetized the good that you're doing in your community. Shape your future. Take the future, build something, get your team behind it, and see what a difference it makes. It makes all the difference for you. It makes all the difference for you. One last thing I want to cover before we end this lesson is the contractual obligations that you can create for your team. And so you can document what it is that you want them to do. Like maybe you want them to come in at 8, stay until at least 4, and they must take half an hour for lunch. Well, that's the contract, right? You must do these things and they'll deliver this. But their potential is so significantly beyond that. Their potential is to deliver more if they want to. And we call that discretionary goodwill. Discretionary goodwill. So many times, so much more contribution can be made from your employees, from your contractors, than what you can legislate for, because they choose to give it to you. You can't demand it. They choose to give you this. That's why it's called discretionary goodwill. And so if you look at that without a goal, without saying to your team, this is where we're heading, but saying to them, well, you must come in at 8 and you can't go before 4 and all the rest of it. If you're doing that with your team, well, maybe you'll get what they think you want, or more likely that what they want to barely do, the bare minimum that they can get away with. But with a goal, with a future-based goal, you can tie all that energy together, especially if you have discretionary goodwill. You can't do it without them believing in you. They may be coming into the office and doing what you want between 8 and 4, but they're spending all their time thinking about fishing or traveling the world or planning their wedding or finding a new partner or anything else that you could possibly think of. All of their talent and energy is going in different directions because you haven't captured it in a way that means they want to bring it to your party. When people get excited about the future, they get excited about it. There's hope. It's going to be a better tomorrow than it is today. Everything's going to be better, and I get to be a part from it. There's an excitement that happens when you start bringing the future into the conversation with your people, and there's an excitement and a sense of security that your team has around you, that you understand the future. You're interested in the future because they're giving you their future. When they come to work every single day, they are trusting a part of their lives into your hand as the entrepreneur. And even if those people aren't actually employed by you, your clients are trusting that when you're sharing leadership principles or personal growth principles or whatever it is that you teach or speak on, they are trusting that you're not just regurgitating something from an old book. They're trusting that you are investing in yourself, that you have access to the relevant thought leaders of today, that you're up in your game, and that you're at the most relevant conferences in the year. You know, when I got the opportunity to join National Speaker Association, I thought, I'm already an international speaker. I'm already an international best-selling author. But you know what? I guess I'll do it. Why? Because there might be something I'm going to learn that takes my business to the next level. And the future of public speaking is changing. It's changing. And even before COVID, they were identifying business cycles and seeing how all these indicators for decline in the speaking engagements were there, and implementing strategies to make money despite the anticipated decline. Now, I don't think they knew how quickly things would decline, and I don't think they knew that COVID was going to be the source of the decline, but experienced speakers who had seen the market cycles before knew that something was coming. And so I tell you, those who took action back in the early parts of COVID, they're okay. They're not driving for Uber. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, okay? You got to do what you got to do. But if you start putting yourself in event after event with thought leaders who can give you the next sliver of the future, you will be able to shape your future. Okay. That's why I really encourage you to go out to jjclink.com/time tested success strategy. Slash TTSS. Let me say that again. I really encourage you to go to jjclink.com/TTSS, because as I up my mastermind game, I'm able to connect you with other experts who can help you prepare for whatever comes in the future. Okay. People talking about the future of internet security, people talking about, how to work with big names like Les Brown, how to attract the right talent so that they'll be so in love with your mission that they'll give you that discretionary goodwill. Like these are the kinds of people that you want to be connect with, the people who understand how to get past all the noise of our present circumstances and conditions and actually rise above that to start fulfilling your purpose, your visions, and your goals. Okay. I really love this lesson because it reminds me of what we need to do to start building from the future. And once we've built it, we set that bar. We set the bar what everybody else has to do to grow on that level. We actually become a trendsetter when we didn't even intend to. And when you're doing that, the future is exciting. And when your team believes in the future, then they're prepared to give more of their discretionary goodwill, and not just what you've legislated for, not just what you wrote in the contract, but actually they're all in best effort as well, because their goals and dreams are now tied into the company's goals and dreams. And then everybody's pulling in the same direction. So powerful. This is what the best companies in the world do. The best organizations, not just companies, but when the team feels like they belong and the team feels like they believe and they know what direction they're supposed to be going in, when they know why they're going in that direction and what's in it for them, that's when you have extraordinary teams. One of the top real estate investors in the nation told me she runs her 8-figure portfolio with just 2 assistants, because everybody is pulling in the same direction. Everybody's laser focused. She can command that share of the marketplace. She can command that share of the marketplace with a small but mighty team. And so can you. The most successful human groups achieve the impossible by capturing the full, willing contribution of their team for a cause that everyone believes in. That's when you get the best out of your people. And it's a lot easier to get people to believe in the future than it is the past. People will criticize the past. They'll second guess the past. They got all kinds of judgments and resentments about the past. But the future is exciting. It's filled with possibilities. It's a blank slate. This is where we're going, and this is what it means to you. And if you can surround yourself with people who are thinking into the future, I promise you, your thinking today will be better. And if you're thinking into the future, your thinking will be better. It just will be. And that's why I want you to join us for our mastermind in our class, jjclink.com/TTSS. Many of the lessons are already pre-recorded and in the class. And as we go through it again as a mastermind, you'll see that we'll refresh the lessons. Every year we refresh the lessons. And once you're in, you're in. So it's a lifetime access and you get all of the future updates to the class. Okay. We're gonna bust through limiting beliefs, and we're gonna learn how to grow our net worth, and we're going to be able to do it by focusing on where this business is going, where this life is going, where my relationships are going. Okay, it's I can't even explain. I can't even explain the explosive growth that you are going to have just from even if you don't implement all 16 of these principles. If you just take one principle a month and focus on implementing that in your life, you're going to be amazed at the explosive growth that you have. And I'm not talking about things that cost money. None of these strategies that we talk about in our time-tested success strategies, none of those cost extra money. You don't have to pull out your credit card. You just have to be and think and do. This has been a great evening. I want to thank y'all for listening. Thank you for joining me. That's all I've got for today. I'm JJ Conway. Thanks y'all for listening. Take care and be blessed. I don't see any questions in the comments, so I'm going to go hang out with my college freshman who is home for the summer. Well, he's home for a week. He's home for a week, and then he's going to his summer job. So I'll see him this week, and I'll see him a week in July. But if I don't see any questions, if you have a question, post it while I'm rambling. Post it while I'm doing the announcements, okay? But if you don't have a question, I'm going to cut it off. And I actually really prefer to have questions because then I know what you want me to teach. I know then I can see better what you need to know, right? So I really prefer to have like 2 or 3 questions, Don't get me wrong. I want to go hang out with my kiddo, but I really would like to have some questions. So I'm giving you a moment to think about that while I think about some of the announcements. If you apply to be a speaker at Juneteenth, then you should be receiving information tonight about that. If you are an author in Juneteenth, nope, that doesn't matter because we already closed those out. We do have a few authors that are rewriting their chapter, so you still have time to do that, but you need to get it done this week because this weekend I'm going to do the final copy. We are starting to plan for our Women's Wealth Tour. We were going to go to Macon, Georgia in June. I'm not sure that's going to happen now with some of the family changes. And so maybe we're going to look at doing Macon for third quarter. I think for June's Women's Wealth Tour will probably be online or will be local. We might just be here in Dallas, the Dallas area, just so we can be in person and get it done. But then I think we'll go to Macon, Georgia for third quarter instead of second quarter. I think that's all the announcements, y'all. I want to thank y'all for being here. I just love seeing your comments come through and I love seeing your messages come through, and I can't always catch them all during the broadcast. But if they don't show up on my screen, because some of them don't show up on the screen, but it just warms my heart to know that you're allowing me to help you get to the next level. It's like with Home Depot, they used to have the phrase, "You can do it and we can help." I'm so excited to be a part of your journey. Thank y'all for being a part of mine. Y'all take care and be blessed.